Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar event about the government's Forest for the Nation competition, which I'm sure you'll know is a multi-million-pound competition to set up a new forest somewhere in England. This is the second of these webinars. We had the first one in the middle of January, and then the competition went live at the beginning of February, and as I'm sure you'll know, the deadline is 10 AM on the 18th of March. This webinar will focus only on stage 1 of the competition, and as I said, that closes on 10 AM the 18th of March. And the last thing for me to say before I introduce the presenters is that this session will be recorded, so you can play it back and watch it later. The purpose of the session today is just to offer you the opportunity to ask any further questions of the DEFRA and National Forest Company team. We're putting these on just to help you to produce the best and most effective bids that you can in the time available. So I hope it'll be helpful. Can I hand over to John and then Jana to introduce themselves and take the webinar forward? Thanks. And Vimbai, sorry, I should have said Vimbai. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm John Everett. I'm the Chief Exec at the National Forest Company. Good to be with you.
Hi, I'm Jana Eastman. I'm the commercial lead for the Nature for Climate Fund and oversee all the commercial elements for this competition.
Hi everyone, I'm Vimbai. I'm the Forest for the Nation competition lead.
By the silence, I'm assuming I'm doing the agenda covering. Sorry, everyone, and I apologise that we were a bit late starting as well. We had some last-minute technical hitches with Teams. So yes, this afternoon, as you can see on the screen, John Everett will be talking, and Vimbai will be talking a little bit about the Forest for the Nation competition and its strategic vision, objectives, etc. The previous seminar in January went into that in a lot more detail than we'll do today, but that is also available for you to watch or re-watch should you wish to. And then Jana will be talking about the competition itself, how it works, and what you need to do. And then the last part of the session will be much better chaired by me, and that will be a Q&A discussion. So with that, I will hand over to John.
Stephen, thank you. So what I wanted to do is add a little bit more detail to try and help you understand exactly what we're looking for. As Stephen mentioned, the programme is now live, the competition is now live, and we're trying to ensure that you've got as much information as you can have in order to craft your bids. The competition itself is designed to help support the government's environmental improvement plan and also the net zero target. So we're looking for this to help us deliver against some of these big targets around tree planting, nature's recovery, and also access to nature. So those are some of the key outcomes that we're looking to support. And as Stephen mentioned, the competition for the Forest for the Nation is inspired by the National Forest and the work that we've done here over the last 30 years. That doesn't mean we're looking for something which is the mirror image of what's happened here in the Midlands, but many of the big themes and the kinds of approach that we've taken here, I think, are things that we want to see people picking up on, and Vimbai will talk a little bit about those in a minute. Stephen mentioned that, yes, we did a much fuller description in January at that webinar of the National Forest and what it's achieved and some of the outcomes. And do look at that in more detail at your leisure, and that might guide you also into some of the things that that we're considering. And And I think probably the thing about that detailed presentation is it helps you to start to understand a little more about the nature of partnership, of longevity, of the sort of financial sustainability and impact. And obviously those are all things that we would want to see a Forest for the Nation having. In terms of today, though, I just thought I'd give a few pointers about the National Forest that just might help to put some of these things in context. It was selected as part of a competitive process, not dissimilar to this competition itself in the late 80s. And some of the reasons that the National Forest was selected as the winner in that competition was partly because of its central location, so it has an impact across a wider geographical area. It has a sort of urban and rural mix that was very helpful at the time. It was also a very heavily industrialized landscape, so it could demonstrate the impact of regeneration very quickly. And it had a very strong national story about reconnecting to remnant forests at the western and eastern edges through that heavily industrialized middle of the landscape. And I think all of those are really important and key to how we'd like to see a Forest for the Nation coming forward. And then the final thing I think that was important was it had significant public support right across from community sectors through to press and media, and also institutions and a range of other organisations and business. So, you know, again, partnership support and how that plays in is really key here. And within the 30 years of the National Forest, we've been able to deliver some of the stats that you see on the page there, starting with 9.5 million trees, but that then leading to a whole range of other benefits, both for people, for the economy, and for wildlife more broadly. So the kind of opportunity of having multifunctional benefits is absolutely key to what some of these opportunities can do. And then I think the final thing I'd just like to highlight here is that, you know, within that 30 years, we have been able to evolve and change and adapt the strategy to fit the particular circumstances. So, you know, our strategy now is very much playing into climate change mitigation and adaptation. That wasn't the highlight on the agenda when we started. It was very much about industrial decline and regeneration. So keeping your headline strategy and evolving it in order to meet circumstances is something that any long-term project has to do. And then I think I'll just mention a little bit about how what we've been able to do has played into a whole range of other benefits, and notwithstanding what that's been able to do for the tourism and leisure economy here. So, you know, the National Forest now is a place where people are coming in to live here, coming in to work, coming in to visit, and that's completely transformed from where it was in the late 80s, early 90s, where people were actually leaving the area. There was some significant industrial decline, and the landscape had already significantly degraded. So, you know, you can have that long-term impact. This is over 30 years, but obviously is looking centuries ahead as we look to establish these woodlands over the long term. So that just gives you a flavour, I think, of what we're looking to do here and how we'd like to see the Forest for the Nation develop from this point. So I'll hand over to Vinbai and she can explain a little bit further.
Thanks, John. As John says, we are interested in proposals that very much demonstrate the ambition and scale and tell a compelling story about the potential for a national impact. So again, thinking as John has mentioned for the National Forest, that sort of bigger narrative and bigger piece of what this initial project could grow to be in years to come. We're also interested in proposals that demonstrate three criteria or three sort of themes, which is innovative, transformative, and people-focused. So we're thinking here about showing innovative in developing new approaches to woodland creation and woodland management, transformative in changing landscapes at scale, people focused. So this is again a key criteria for us, of this thinking of how are we providing for communities and individuals with increasing other opportunities to access and connect with nature, or as John covers, thinking about tourism, volunteering opportunities and the like. And so these high-level themes about are then covered in our criteria, which we're going to cover now in terms of what we are asking for applicants to demonstrate in their proposals.
Okay, so what you've got in front of you is a set of criteria that we're now working with. There's a little bit more detail than we had last time we presented. And I'll just talk a little bit about these and give you a feel for perhaps where we might be focusing our attention. Under nationally significant, I mean, I highlighted the idea of a clear vision. I think that it's really, really important that you've got a strong story and narrative behind what your area is and what you want it to become and how this is going to support that. That strong narrative will need to play into some of the ideas of perhaps innovation and transformation that Vinbai mentioned. And then we're talking about a significant geographical area. And I'd rather cryptically say that has to be not too big and not too small, because if it's too big, it's too amorphous and it won't have that focus of transformational change. If it's too small, it's unlikely to have national impact. So National Forest is 200 square miles. I mean, that's not something that you have to mirror, but I think it's just worth working with an area at scale that you feel tells your story well. Then we're looking at connecting people with nature, and what we're looking for is you to demonstrate the proximity to people, the centres of population that will be impacted, the kinds of audiences, and perhaps a bit more about how they'll be impacted. And again, some of that will be enhanced, I think, by innovative or other opportunities that you can use to bring on different partners. And that may have impact also in the economic sphere as well, whether that's around business and services, or whether that's around well-being and access to nature. So a range of ways where you can be connecting with people and also impacting on their well-being. Thinking about woodland creation and tree planting, where we do want to see some impact on the tree canopy and woodland cover targets. Those are obviously headlines, but it's important that we see that working alongside the nature of the landscape, and you know, we need to make sure that we're not conflicting with other land uses. Where you've got good agricultural soils, you want to see those enhanced. Where we might have other particular priority habitats, we don't want to see clashes with those. Where there are particular species groups that might be negatively impacted, we want to understand how you're working around those to maximise benefits of biodiversity as well. And that also goes for other land uses, and making sure that we're not taking land that is better suited to other land uses, let's say. And again, I think that plays into the story of how you're talking about the transformation of that whole landscape through the range of land uses. And then the fourth one here is around woodland condition, which is suggested here as more desirable. We would like to see whether there's impacts around woodland management and getting our woodlands into better active management. And in particular, some of that is going to be focusing around reduction of pests and diseases, making sure we've got resilient woodlands into the long term, and also seeing how those engage with our different business groups, community groups and others. So huge opportunities for new partnerships and innovation in that sphere as well. And then I'll let Vinbai talk a little bit about viability and feasibility.
Thanks, John. Yes, so while the first four criteria are very much about what the proposal is and telling that narrative of the idea, the last two on viability and feasibility are us gaining an understanding of the deliverability of the proposal. So thinking about viability, as John mentions, we are very much interested in partnerships for the proposals. There is the requirement of the partnership with the local authority. And so at this stage, we'll be asking for evidence of some of that engagement or some of that partnership. So this will be covered in the specifics about the competition, but we would be looking, for example, for letters of support. We're also interested in understanding plans for acquiring funding beyond the initial Kickstarter fund that we're providing here. So thinking about, again, on the theme of partnerships, about our proposals leveraging new funding partnerships, which could include private investment. But also we would want to understand if proposals are in areas where you're already receiving government funding, how would this additional funding add value and not be duplicative? And then the second criteria here is on feasibility, where it's very much the evidence of capability, capacity, and to deliver the proposals. Again, we'd be testing here for some of the thinking about the suitability of the landscape to deliver the proposals, or a high level summarizing that. We'd also want to see the type of activity which the project intends to deliver with the funding, and also asking applicants to demonstrate how value for money will be delivered, and other such criteria. But as we've covered, this is all included in the ITA document. But I'll hand over now to Jana, who will cover the specifics of the competition and what you need to do for stage 1.
Thank you, Vinbai.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so today we were hoping was going to be specifically about clarifications and questions from yourselves that have joined, because I think for people that were here in the first webinar and through to now, you can see that we have honed down quite a lot of the detail. We've tried to be a lot clearer about the vision and what we want to achieve, but there will be probably different questions that you have now that we're very keen to hear about at the end of this. So we're going to open it up for a big Q&A at the end of my bit. But in terms of the stage 1 and the stage 2, so the ITA has the invitation to apply has been published. It's a brilliant read, if I do say so myself, so have a little read of that on an evening. But just to explain, what you will hear from John and Vinbai is that there's no perfect answer. Okay, we're not trying to catch anybody out with this. There'll be nobody out there that can tick everything that we've just said. So that's the first thing to kind of suggest. We wanted it to be an outcome-based specification, and it is, which means it's open to all manner of proposals to come in. So we really hope that you can see that we've honed down the criteria tighter than it was to make it just clearer about what a forest for the nation could look like without being too restrictive. I just want to kind of encourage applications on that basis. And I also just want to explain a little bit about what we're looking for in stage 1. So the stage 1 and the stage 2 is basically a long list to a short list. Okay, so it may look a bit more complicated than that, but we're not expecting final proposals at this stage. Everybody only has 6 weeks to do it. You're all in the same place. And if you look at the language in the ITA, it is outline plans. And I think the word that Vinbai used and John about narrative and story, assurance is where you can give them if you've got them, and evidence where you can give them. But in terms of kind of evidence of consultation, the difference between letters of support that you're talking to compared to strong kind of commitments that we'll be looking to in stage 2, that this is definitely going to happen and all these people have signed this partnership agreement and off we go. So that's kind of just to give you a flavour of the difference of the stages and what we're looking for in these initial expectations. I just don't really want to sort of scare everybody in terms of what we're expecting to see. It is your outline proposals. What you will we are taking through up to 4 applications into the second part of the competition. So that's kind of the long list down into the short list. And then there's going to be funding available for up to 4 of those applicants to accelerate their bid development, basically to put some, so you can put resources behind developing a fuller application for us to evaluate at stage 2. And as part of that, you will have access to support from the National Forest Company. So that will be invaluable support to help you expand on those applications and get them in a position to have what's going to be a really exciting competition at stage 2 as well as stage 1. That's kind of how that all works. So we've got, you'll see the plan there. I'm not going to read it out for everybody. The timeline's there. The timeline is also in the ITA, so that will be represented in there. Let me just check. Oh, well, actually, I probably covered most things there in my little rambling bit. Yeah, let's go on to the next slide because that's a bit more about stage 1. So what we are looking for, we've split the evaluation up into 3 parts. The first part is what you'd recognise if people are used to doing kind of applications, like the technical element. It's the qualitative questions that we're asking about your proposals. Then we have a second part that's specifically asking you what you're going to do if you get a bit of extra money to develop your bid further. There's just a little bit of the ITA that is around that, and we have up to 150k available for each of the applications to develop your bids further. So the main part is part 1. Tell us your story. There's lots of different questions in there. There's word limits. You don't have to write to the word limits, so don't feel like you need to fill the pages. Be concise, but we just tell us the story, tell us where you're at. We're going to have a mixed team of evaluators, which we will confirm at the end of this week, and that'll be the main kind of guts of the stage 1 evaluation. The commercial envelope as part of stage 1 is we'll be asking about what you're planning on spending the up to 150k on, how you're going to develop that bid, what resources you might want to use to do that. And we are looking at additional things that you might want to bring to that. So if you can use existing resources from within your organisation, you will score well in the commercial envelope above and beyond the money that we have available for that. So that's probably covering most of that. It's on Atomis, which is our e-portal. So any questions around that, we have if you don't know how to get through Atomis, actually, I'm probably going to then, I always do this, I always trip myself up by starting to talk about something that I don't quite know the answer to. Finbar, if people have general questions, let's say if people know how to use Atomis, they'll send them through and they'll come to us. But if they don't have that, we've still got that shared email address that we can put in the chat.
Yes, we still have the shared email address. I'm trying to, it's Forest for the Nation, but we can put it in the chat so that everyone has access to it and they can send questions there.
Brilliant. So I suspect there's quite a few questions. So I'm going to hand back to Stephen and then we'll see where we go with the Q&A.
Thank you, Jenna and Finbar and John. So I'm sure that you will have lots of questions. I've got a very basic one just to kick us off. Are all of the slide packs available on the web page or the landing page where the Forest for the Nation competition stuff is situated? Because people might want to refer back to these slide packs as part of their looking. Okay. Right, so I'll open it to the floor. Who's